This is Memphis International Airport. On paper, it's a mid-sized airport in Tennessee, serving less than 5 million passengers annually. But from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., it becomes the busiest airport on the planet. A cargo jet lands or takes off roughly every 90 seconds. Between 150 and 200 aircraft arrive, get unloaded, sorted, reloaded, and flown back out. By morning, more than 1.5 million packages will have passed through one building, and the airport goes back to being unremarkable. 300 miles north in Louisville, the exact same thing is happening. The Worldport hub, run by UPS, spans 5.2 million square feet, making it the largest fully automated package handling facility on Earth, and handles around 2 million packages a night. When you pay $40 to ship an envelope overnight, you're not paying for a truck. You're renting a seat on one of the most complicated nightly operations humans have ever built, and almost nobody who uses it has any idea how it works. Well, to understand that, we have to start with a problem that, on paper, shouldn't have a solution. Here's the math. Imagine you want to offer overnight delivery between every major city in America. There's roughly 100 of them. If you connect every city directly to every other city, the way a normal airline thinks about routes, then you don't need 100 flights. You'd need nearly 5,000. So almost all of those routes would fly nearly empty. There just isn't enough overnight freight movement between, say, Tucson and Buffalo to fill a plane every single night. So you'd be flying thousands of mostly empty jets across the country, burning fuel, paying crews, and losing money on basically every leg. No airline on Earth could afford that. So the people that actually built this came up with an answer that sounds completely insane. Instead of flying packages toward their destination, you fly every single package to one spot in the middle of the country first, even if it's barely going anywhere. A box being shipped overnight from Boston to New York, two cities about 200 miles apart, doesn't fly to New York. It flies roughly 1,000 miles to Memphis, gets sorted in the middle of the night, and then flies 1,000 miles back. That box travels around 2,000 miles to go just 200. And somehow, this is cheaper, faster, and more reliable than flying it straight there. This is the magic of a hub. When every package goes to one place, every plane flies full, every route is guaranteed volume, and you only need a handful of flights per city instead of thousands. The detour itself is the entire business model. The industry calls it a hub-and-spoke network. And to understand how anyone landed on something this counterintuitive, we have to go back to a college kid and a term paper. In 1965, a Yale undergrad named Fred Smith wrote an economics paper. His argument was that America was becoming an automated, computerized society, full of computers and copiers. And all of that stuff needed parts. Time-sensitive, high-value parts that couldn't wait 3 days in the mail. The problem was that air freight back then moved as belly cargo on passenger planes, on routes designed around people, not packages. Smith's idea was to build a dedicated air network that did nothing but move freight, routed through a single central hub. And the model he reached for was banking. See, banks at the time cleared checks overnight by sending them through a central clearinghouse, and Smith figured packages could move the exact same way. Now, you've maybe heard the legend that this paper got a C, and that a C paper became a $50 billion company. It's a great story, but it's also probably not true. When asked about it years later, Smith said he didn't remember the grade. He just guessed that it was probably his usual C, and that only showed up in print in 1978, years after the fact. What we do know is that whatever the professor thought, the idea was sound. Smith just had to nearly go bankrupt proving it. He founded FedEx in 1971, sank his roughly $4 million inheritance into it, and raised around $91 million in venture capital, which at the time was the largest startup fundraise anyone had ever pulled off. After a failed soft launch where 6 jets delivered 6 packages, the company officially launched on April 17, 1973. 14 Dassault Falcon jets, 25 cities, and 186 packages on the first real night. And it almost died immediately. FedEx lost around $30 million in its first 3 years, and at one point the planes were nearly grounded because the company couldn't pay its fuel bills. This is where one of the most famous stories in business history comes in. And the wild part is this one's actually true. After a key investor refused to put in more money, Smith took the company's last $5,000, flew to Las Vegas, and played blackjack. He won $27,000, enough to cover an overdue fuel bill and keep the planes flying one more week. Don't take this as business advice, by the way. So why Memphis as the hub? Well, a few reasons. The first was geography. Memphis sits close to the population center of the US. 40% of the US population lives within a single day's drive of the city, which is exactly where you want your hub if everything has to detour through it. The second was the weather. Memphis International rarely closes, which matters enormously when your entire business depends on planes landing every single night without fail. And the third was that the local airport authority actually wanted them there, with hangar space and incentives. But there was one more thing that turned this from a clever idea into an empire. And it was a law. In 1977, Congress passed Public Law 95163, which deregulated air cargo and let cargo carriers fly bigger planes without route restrictions. FedEx immediately bought 7 Boeing 727s, each with about 7 times the cargo capacity of those little Falcon jets. And that's what made a single giant hub actually viable, because now you could fly enough volume into one place to sort it all at once. The overnight industry didn't really exist before deregulation. After it, it exploded. Fast forward to today, and that 14-jet startup is the largest cargo airline on the planet. FedEx Express flies around 700 aircraft. UPS Airlines isn't far behind. These are fleets bigger than most passenger airlines you've actually flown on. And nearly all of it exists to serve one event that happens in the dark, every night while you're asleep. So let's actually follow a package through that night. It's 6 p.m. in Phoenix. Someone hands a box to a driver going to Charlotte overnight. That box gets trucked to the Phoenix airport, loaded into a curved metal container shaped to fit the inside of a fuselage, and put on a jet bound for Memphis. The plane takes off late in the evening and joins a steady stream of aircraft all heading for the same spot. Between about 10:30 p.m. and 1 a.m., the planes queue up and land, one roughly every 90 seconds, until something like 140 jets are sitting on the ramp at once. Now the building takes over, and the FedEx World Hub is genuinely hard to comprehend at scale. It covers 940 acres, with 84 miles of conveyor belt running through it, and on a peak basis, it can handle 500,000 packages in an hour. Our box gets pulled off the plane, dropped onto a belt, and from there, it's basically untouched by humans. 6-sided scanning reads every face of it. Robotic arms and diverters peel it off toward the right outbound flight. And at some point, it drops between floors of the building, down one of 460 spiral chutes. 300 miles away, the UPS version of this is a near-perfect mirror image, handling 416,000 packages an hour with 155 miles of conveyor belt. A package entering the building gets sorted to its exact outbound aircraft position in about 13 minutes. And across that whole journey, it's touched by human hands only twice. Once when it comes off the plane, and once when it goes back on. Everything in between is machines. But there's a hard deadline hanging over all of it. Our box has to get sorted and back onto a Charlotte-bound plane before that plane has to leave. FedEx's goal is to have the last package through the sort by about 2:07 a.m., with outbound planes pushing back shortly after, and all 140 jets gone by 4:30 in the morning. So our box flies out of Memphis in the dead of night, lands in Charlotte around dawn, gets broken down at the ramp, trucked to the local station, and loaded onto a delivery van. All of that compressed into a few hours to hit a delivery guarantee of 10:30 a.m. And the last mile, the part where the van actually drives to your door, is its own science. This is where what the industry calls route optimization comes in. Software that recalculates driver routes to shave off wasted minutes and fuel, down to famously trying to avoid left turns, since sitting and waiting to cross oncoming traffic burns both. Now, the entire system, this whole machine, only works because of one brutal constraint. The industry calls it the sort window. Every plane has to be on the ground before the sort can finish, and every plane has to leave in time to land, clear, and get packages onto trucks before the delivery promise. There's no slack. A 30-minute delay in Memphis at 1 a.m. doesn't stay a 30-minute delay. It becomes thousands of broken guarantees across 40 cities by 10:30 the next morning. Which brings us to the stuff almost nobody knows exists. Because if the whole network can be wrecked by a 30-minute delay, the single biggest threat to it isn't a competitor, it's the weather. So FedEx and until recently UPS each run their own in-house meteorology departments, staffed around the clock. These are among the largest private weather operations in the world, because fog or ice in Memphis isn't an inconvenience. It's an existential threat to the entire network. So when something goes wrong, there's a contingency playbook. The carriers can divert packages to backup hubs, like sending Memphis volume to Indianapolis. And it's all run from FedEx's 24/7 Global Operations Control Center near the Memphis airport, which tracks every FedEx aircraft on the planet in real time. UPS has its own equivalent in Louisville. They even keep what are called hot spares, fully fueled, fully crewed jets parked and ready, that exist purely as backups in case a plane breaks down somewhere out in the network. FedEx famously runs a daily flying spare that loops around the south on a deliberately wandering route, often nearly empty, just so it can be diverted anywhere it's suddenly needed. Just a handful of spare planes back up the entire US territory. See, an overnight network has no buffer. A normal store has inventory sitting on a shelf. An overnight network has none. The package in the air is the only one there is. So every single night is a brand new game with no second chances. And then something even bigger came for the model: e-commerce. On paper, the explosion of online shopping should have been the greatest gift these carriers ever got. After all, way more packages. But it wasn't, because e-commerce shifted everything toward cheap residential delivery. And residential delivery is the worst economics in all of shipping. Think about it. The old business was 50 packages dropped at one company's loading dock. The new business is one package to one doorstep, then drive to the next doorstep, then the next. The last mile alone can be over half the total cost of shipping a package, and homes are spread out in a way that loading docks never were. And the company that figured this out best was Amazon. For a while, they were FedEx's biggest opportunity. Then it quietly built its own air fleet, Amazon Air, with its own hub at the Cincinnati airport that opened in 2021. But the genius move wasn't the planes. Amazon redefined what fast even meant. Instead of overnight, it sold free 2-day, then 1-day, and even sometimes same-day delivery. And it pulled that off by pre-positioning inventory in regional warehouses all over the country. So the stuff you ordered barely had to fly at all. If the item you ordered is already in a warehouse 30 miles away, then there's no need. That's what's reshaping the whole model. In 2019, FedEx walked away from its Amazon shipping contracts, which in hindsight was the inflection point of the entire industry. Amazon's package volume grew from under $1 billion in 2018 to about $6.7 billion in 2025. And that same year, Amazon's own delivery network passed the US Postal Service in package volume for the first time, making it the largest parcel carrier in the US. FedEx, meanwhile, has been consolidating its express and ground operations into a single network it calls Network 2.0, cutting hub flights and shrinking its facility count. The era where the entire game was, how fast can we fly it to Memphis and back, is quietly ending. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you in the next one.